Welcome back. This is Sandy with Sandy's Organized Chaos, and today we are going to do one of the most easiest peekaboos I've done in a while. We're going to use some fishnet stockings to create this really cool look. So easy. I know you guys got this. As always, I make sure to put everything I use today into the description box below so that way you guys can purchase those items if you would like to. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and let's wake up, prep these tumblers, and slay all day. Let's do this. We are going to start off with our base first. Now I wanted a glittery base, and I think the biggest thing I can say when it comes to really making sure that it really pops once you spray paint over top of this is to use a glitter that has just a really pretty shift to it. Sometimes, we have different shades of glitter sitting on our cabinet, and sometimes some of them are pearl, sometimes some of them are opal. It really all depends on what kind of mood you're in and what kind of tumbler you're trying to recreate. But I wanted something kind of Halloween-y because, that's coming up quick. And I know there's a lot of ladies out there that are really into that. So that's what I'm going to be going with here. So I chose something that has a lot of high flash that you could really see once we spray paint it over top. So I'm going to go ahead and prep this tumbler here. I got my little tumbler right up from Mother Tumbler. Of course, I have a discount code below if you'd like to use it. I went ahead and spray painted my base with a harvest grape, and then I am going to be using Aurora for my glitter. And as you guys just seen, I am using the epoxy method to adhere my glitter down because I'm using a chunky. I really like using epoxy. I use a little bit more than intended, so that way all that glitter just kind of lays nice and flat and snuggles down next to each other, and we don't have to worry about too much sanding after we get our flood coat of epoxy over top of this raw glitter. So I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle that on. As you guys see, I'm using my fingers to sprinkle it. That's just to make sure that I'm in control and I don't accidentally load it up too much. So I just do the bottom, I do up around the rim, and then I fill in the center, and I let it rotate in my hand a few times, and then I fill in any gaps that I need to, and then I'm going to place it onto my turner because we applied a little bit more epoxy than we typically do. I don't want this to shift around on me, so I'm just going to let that cure on my turner. Then after that is nicely cured, we're going to come through and add a flood coat of epoxy over top of that raw glitter. And of course, the first thing you want to do, because I'm using chunky glitter, there we go, mainly, is you want to make sure that you seal down your glitter with something. I like to use a spray sealer, or you could use a liquid sealer, whatever one you have on hand. They both work just as well. So I gave it a nice coating of my clear sealer. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a coating of about 20 mLs because my tumbler's so small. 20 was pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and place that back onto my turner. I'm going to hit it up really good with my torch. I'm going to let that cure. Now after it's cured, if it needs another coat of epoxy, I will apply it. Make sure you sand it first. Give it another coat if you need to because you want it relatively smooth for when we go to do our peekaboo. But the reason for the spray sealer over top of the glitter is so that way these glitters are very slick. So when the epoxy starts to cure, it will want to pull back on itself. It kind of shrinks a little bit. And if it's too slick, it won't be able to hold tight over top of the glitter. So the spray sealer really helps to make sure that it stays completely smooth and stuff over top. So that's why we do that. So if you ever have that issue, that's probably why. Just give it a good coat of spray sealer first before you add your epoxy. She's smooth, she's ready to go, but before we do that, I am going to go ahead and trim up my rim. I'm going to use my razor knife, and I'm going to very carefully, with my hand out of the way, I'm going to clean up my rim. I'm going to give my rim a nice sanding, and then I will come through and clean it with a cloth and some rubbing alcohol. Now for the fishnets, I got this pack here. This was only like $7 and it came with all these, but there's all kinds of different sizes of fishnet stockings that you could use if you want to. I'm just going to use the regular old one, but I mean, there was a lot to choose from and I couldn't believe it was only $7. So at this point in time, it's only $7. I don't know what it'll be in the future, but I'm just saying right now, it was pretty cheap. So now I'm going to go ahead and take my fishnets, and I only need a little bit because it's such a small tumbler. So I'm actually going to just cut a piece of this leg off here for this particular tumbler. And I just want to let you guys know that you don't have to use fishnets. You could even use, they have cool pantyhose with like designs on them, like with spider webs and snakes and all kinds of stuff out there that you could use. And flowers, I've seen some with flowers too. So you don't have to use the fishnets. Feel free, to let your imagination flow completely and go ahead and use any type of stockings you would like to for this. we're going to go ahead and fit it nice and snugly around our tumbler. And to make sure that it stays nice and tight and have that design for us, I'm going to go ahead and utilize my wand, and I'm going to place my wand nice and tight down inside of the tumbler. Now, I am going to show you guys, because I really was hoping that this design was going to go completely around the bottom. I'm going to show you what's going to happen if these stockings are not flushed against your tumbler. Okay, so, I'm just going to show you that. But I am trying to twist. I twisted it up. It had a really cool design to it. I'm going to tie that up too, but it still doesn't turn out the way that I want to, but it's all good. It is what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and put my wand nice and snug down in there, and then I'm just going to come through and adjust my fishnet so that way all of the seams are even with each other, because we want it to look nice and even for ourselves. But as you can see on the bottom, there's a little bit of a dip, and if it's not fully flush against it, it will not work. So you guys might want to utilize maybe some tack it over and over or something that will make sure that it's flush all the way on the bottom if you want it completely wrapped around. But I was actually fine with the outcome after that's done. But anyways, let's head outside. And we're going to go ahead and use black spray paint. That's what I had on hand, or you could use any color you would like, of course. I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom first. I had high hopes. I could tell just by looking at it, it wasn't going to turn out, but we went with it anyways. So I'm just going to give it a very light coating all over. I just want to make sure that it's filled in to the best of my ability. I didn't want to do too thick. I don't want any runs or anything. So you just very lightly come through so that way you don't accidentally get any runs and build up around your fishnets. And after that is done, we're just going to set that off to the side and let that dry. And then you want it to be fully dry before you peel this back so you don't accidentally smudge it or anything. So you have to just let it sit off to the side. I let mine sit for a few hours. I had some errands I had to go run, so I let it sit off to the side before I peel this back for sure. Now the fun part, let's see how we did. We're going to go ahead and just very carefully peel this back as I'm using my tumbler to knock everything else out of the way. See, I'm so gentle. And then we peel it back and look at that. That is so cute. I mean, you could really do anything you want over top. See, this is what it's going to look like if it doesn't. It's all good though. I'm going to show you guys how I fix it here in a minute, but it's all good, But to clean it up, we're just going to take some 100% acetone. I'm going to take a paper towel, and I'm just going to wipe this circle away until it gets down to that portion where the dip is. So right where that dip starts is right where I'm going to end it. Not a big deal. And there we go. I really actually like how this turns out. I guess, I'm sure the pattern would look cool, but this is cool too. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and put another coat of epoxy over top before we finish it up with whatever designs you guys want to do with yours. I want to add a little bit of sparkle dust over mine, so I'm going to use a little bit of green sparkle dust right down into my epoxy. You don't want to add too much. A little bit goes a long ways. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to go ahead and place that onto my turner, heat it up really good with my torch. I'm going to let that cure, and then we're going to finish this up. So like I was saying earlier, you could really do so much over top of this. It doesn't have to be the bats. It doesn't have to be the smoke look that I'm going to do over the bats too. This base could be done up with so many different variations. It's just a really cool backdrop for sure for anything you would like to do. But I wanted to do something simple, and this is just the most easiest. Again, we're doing super easy peekaboo. We're going to do some super easy decals. We're going to utilize some UV DTFs. We're going to go ahead and get that lined up on our tumbler. We're going to lay our decals down. And again, before we add another coating of epoxy over top, because we're going to move on to the epoxy after we get this all peeled back, you want to make sure that you come through and again, seal down these UV DTFs, because what will happen is your epoxy will definitely want to wick away off of these. Okay, so make sure you seal it once more before you apply your epoxy over top of this. And one more super easy element to add to just give it just that one last bit of elevation, just to really make it hit a home run here. We're going to add some fog. So we're going to take our epoxy, we're going to load this up completely and just leave a little bit of your epoxy left over into the bottom of your cup. So it's on your turner, you have a little bit of epoxy left over, and now we want to dye our epoxy. I'm using a dye. I happen to have dye on hand. If you don't have dye, just use a little tiny bit of acrylic paint, or you could use a little bit of white mica powder, or you could use a little bit of white alcohol ink, whatever you have on hand. But whatever you use, you don't want it too saturated. You want to still kind of be able to see through it, so don't put too much additive into it. To start off, I'm just going to use the side of my popsicle stick to smear down my colorant. Now, the reason why I do that is so that way I know how potent this is because it could be pretty saturated with color, and I don't want it to get I don't want it to get too crazy with the coloring. Okay, so just a little bit at a time, that's all you got to do. Then what I like to do is I'll come through with the flat end of my stick and I'm going to smooth everything out. And then I will continue that process until I am satisfied with how much fog I have going on over my bats. You don't want to get too crazy. And of course, you can come through and hit it up with your torch if you need to, or hit it up with your heat gun if you need to kind of move everything around. Whatever you guys want to do to really elevate your fog, you can do it in that manner. But I'm just going to keep it simple, just like this, and just come through and smooth it around if I need to with the flat end of my popsicle stick. And that's it. That's how simple this tumbler is. I'm going to go ahead and let that cure. I will add a few more finishing coats of epoxy onto it just to make sure it's nicely sealed down, and then she is ready to go. Whether you take this design and duplicate it as is, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something that is completely your own, I hope that you guys had a lot of fun watching this tutorial today. Again, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.